Hi everyone, super excited to have you guys back for another bonus episode for our 26 Days to Greatness Challenge. Today with us, we have Alexandra Stockwell, MD, who is a relationship expert and an intimacy expert who teach couples how to build beautiful, stable, long-lasting relationships and how to infuse pleasure and purpose into all aspects of their lives. And I know you must be wondering why are we talking about relationships on this series? It's totally relevant because being able to create a thriving relationship and a thriving business really goes hand in hand, and we can have them both. We're going to talk about that today. So Alexandra, thank you so much for being on here. Such an honor.
I'm so glad to be here, Miko. And I think it's very wise of you to include this topic in a whole summit on business, because people often forget that until there are problems. And for anyone who's in the process of designing or redesigning or expanding your business, include some consideration of your relationships now. It is a very good investment of the attention to do that.
Oh, I'm so glad you really shed some insight on that. And Alexandra, before we get started, I just want to give our audience a quick reminder to make sure you got your phones notifications turned off, have your notebooks ready, a pen ready to take notes, because Alexandra is really going to share some powerful insights with us, and we want to make sure we got that down. So, Alexandra, would you like to share and begin to tell us a little bit more about who you are, about your journey, your story?
Yes, absolutely. So I've been married for 24 years. I have 4 children. I've been deeply immersed in my relationships for a long time. I met my husband when we were both starting medical school in 1993. And when I met him, I was already very ambitious. Obviously, we met in medical school, and I was really devoted to having a very meaningful career and a family life. And I created all of those things. I had my own private practice doing family medicine in Massachusetts. I was married to a wonderful man. I had 3 of my 4 children at this point, and I had paid off my medical school debt, and I was in my mid-30s, and I thought I should really have some sense of having arrived, be gratified, all these things that I've been working so hard for, depending on when you start counting, 20 years. I had been really focused and ambitious, and I didn't actually feel that sense of satisfaction and accomplishment, even though every box I'd ever put on a list was now checked off. And I thought, I can't live this way for another 40 years. It will eventually just deplete me. And so I didn't feel burned out, none of that. I just didn't feel as gratified as I had expected to. And so I started investigating that. I am totally someone who wants to go from good to great to absolutely outstanding and fantastic. This was not about learning to survive at all. It was about learning to really feel the fulfillment and the excitement in what I'd created, which I didn't feel. So I gave myself permission to go on a journey. And I say that quickly, but that was actually, took a lot of courage it takes courage to be successful in something and then look in other directions. But I did. And I started dancing. I just did all kinds of different things. And I ended up, for my own sake, doing a training in sensuality and sexuality, because I realized that was an area that my husband and I could really expand and enjoy more. And so I did this training for myself, but it doubled as a coach training. I wasn't there to become a coach. I didn't even know what a coach was. I took my MD seriously and liked formal trainings, but it was amazing. And when I did the practice coaching, I knew that I'd found my home, because in doing relationship coaching, I grow myself in my own relationship, and I'm able to take all of my different experiences and serve other people. So initially I really focused on couples and individuals who want to improve their relationships. Mm-hmm. But the more that I did, the more I started to have clients who are also entrepreneurs, who are really devoted to their business. And I've learned a lot from trainings I've done, trainings I've given to other coaches, and working with couples. There are really three different scenarios. One is where the couple is in business together. One scenario is where one person is an entrepreneur and the other one is an employee. And then the situation where neither one is an entrepreneur. And so I really want to focus, for anyone who's watching this, I'm assuming that at least you're either not in a relationship or you're in a relationship and at least one of you is an entrepreneur. And that's what I want to speak to. Mm-hmm. Because as entrepreneurs, things move quickly. There are a lot of decisions to make. The growth curve is steep. We're always facing our fears and expanding our vision. There's no like, oh, these are the tasks I'm going to do today and then I feel done. At the end of the day, when you're really in your business, you rarely feel done. Mm-hmm. In fact, it comes up for me now. I have this fantastic executive assistant, and she lives in a different time zone. So her day ends sooner than mine, and she's an amazing woman. She finishes the work she does, and as soon as we're done with any project, I already have the next 3 things to work on. And it's new that she and I are working together, and I'm watching myself to really allow that pause when the work is done. Like, she's done this amazing work. I really just want to wait and tell her the next task the next morning. But I need to train myself, because as soon as we finish one thing, I'm really clear on what the next big project is. And that's the nature of running my own business and being an entrepreneur. These are wonderful qualities to have: to be ambitious, to be driven, to be willing to take risks, I'm assuming all of the different speakers in this summit have taught all kinds of amazing tools that are related to what I'm talking about. So I'm not going to repeat those lessons. But when one has integrated and implemented the lessons that other people will have taught in this summit, we often lose the capacity to just hang out with a boyfriend or spouse, to just have a beer and be satisfied talking about nothing. Mm-hmm. And it creates profound tension. Is what I'm saying make sense? Do you relate?
Yes, 100%. You are really making total sense. And a lot of the things that you mentioned, like I just see it happening in my own journey. Sometimes, literally last night, I told myself my cutoff time would be like 7 p.m. But then I still caught myself on my iPad, because I had to also connect with a VA who's all the way in the Philippines. She needed something from me. So like right before bed, I was still on my iPad sending her information. So like needing to find that healthy boundary between our relationships and our business. Like, I think this is something a lot of highly driven people struggle with. So how can we have both amazing business and amazing relationships?
Yeah, that is it. And you said something so great, Miko, because I thought you were about to say, how can we have a healthy balance? But that's not what you said. You said, how can we have a healthy boundary? And I think that is such an important distinction, because I just want to quickly address this idea of finding balance in life, and people want to find a work-life balance. I don't believe in that at all, because balance, it's like, if you think of a scale, it's like as much weight as on this side is on this side, and it like gets you to neutral. That's not anything to strive for as an entrepreneur. I much prefer the word harmony, because in harmony, you have all the different voices, and, you have the melody, and you have the bass line, and you have the middle tones, and together they create a fantastic song. But you're not looking to neutralize or compensate for any of them. You want to include each of those voices in the music of your life. And that is really a foundational principle in what I'm now going to teach.
Yeah, I'm so excited. Okay, I hope everyone caught that. Like, it's not about having either or. It's not about having an amazing business or the amazing relationship, but Alexandra is really going to show us how we can have both at the same time without compromising, without like sacrificing one or the other. So I'm excited.
Yes, and in fact, maybe I'll start there, that compromise is something that is taught, just putting business aside for a moment and focusing on relationships. The primary message that is taught in Western society is that the best way to have a great marriage is to learn to compromise. And I don't believe that at all. In fact, the name of my book is Uncompromising Intimacy, because I believe that in order to have a really great relationship, you need to learn to bring all of who you are to the relationship. And that means learning to love and accept and honor all of who you are, and learn to love, accept, and honor all of who your partner is. So that is something foundational for creating a long-lasting, stable relationship with ongoing passion. I think the thing that causes passion to die off in long-term relationships is compromise. But when we can bring all of ourselves, and I want to be clear, it doesn't mean you get your way all the time. It just means that you bring all of who you are, and then you figure it out together. So that is true in any great relationship, and it is also true in any person's life where he or she is an entrepreneur and wanting a nourishing relationship. So if you're an entrepreneur and you're thinking fast and you're thinking about your business, and when things go well, you're so excited. If your partner isn't part of that business, it's really important that you share what's happening in your business, because that's what's in your soul and that's what's filling you up. And it's also important that it's not the only thing you're talking about. And so long as you're sharing what matters to you so that your partner knows, you really don't need to get caught in all of the specifics. I think one of the most amazing skills to develop is to feel the excitement. Let's say I close a really significant deal, or I am interviewed in a really important, I was so excited actually when I was in Huffington Post and Cosmopolitan in the same week, when I had that experience for the first time. And so I could have had every conversation with my husband be about how I felt about that, because it was such an exciting milestone and it filled me with so much energy. But how interesting is that going to be for him? So one of the things is to learn to take that energy and bring it into the relationship without taking the specific content and bringing it into the relationship. Or you can bring it in once. So I can, for example, feel so excited about an achievement in my business and take that into the sensual realm with my husband. Like, take the energy and instead of talking all about the details and what the reporter said and how many clicks and likes, to just start kissing my husband with that energy. And what I'm trying to convey with this is, rather than having to compartmentalize and be one person at work, and then it's likely for someone who's an entrepreneur that they're not necessarily walking in the door to come home, but sometimes that happens. But just as an image, you don't want to come home and then be a different person. That just causes stress between work and relationship. So to find ways to bring all the good, juicy energy and the energy of frustration and actually, I had this work. I was interviewed for something I was interviewed 6 weeks ago, and but last week it went live on YouTube, and within a day there were 3,000 views of this interview, and there have been more and more since. However, that was the day that that none of my opt-ins worked. In other words, all of the ways for people to contact me, the links didn't work for a particular reason. It doesn't matter. But the point was, I could have just been an unpleasant person to have dinner with that night.
Yeah.
But I wasn't, because there is no reason for the tech in my business to set the tone for my relationship. So my first point is, bring home all the juicy stuff. Don't restrict your lover from feeling that excitement that you feel in your business, that drives you to do it. And don't obsess about what didn't work. You'll have another opportunity to try again the next day. And instead, maybe that's a really good day to ask your partner more about what they're thinking about and what their dreams are, and ask, or just have a peaceful evening together, snuggling and, letting it go. So that's my first point. Choose which energy you bring home to your relationship, and choose which content. Meaning, don't keep talking about your business unless your partner is a part of it, but share enough so you don't feel like there's no place for your business in your relationship.
I love the way that you just broke that down, Alexandra. This is like I can just visualize as you speak. And this is powerful, because I can sometimes understand that if someone is not in the same business that I'm building, they might not be interested in like the techie stuff, the MailChimps, the emails.
Exactly, yes.
But it's all about the energy, right? If I feel excited, if I can bring that same energy into the relationship, it could really add to it and support it to continue to grow. I've never looked at it that way. And I love how you mentioned that don't compartmentalize and be one person while we are in the business mode, and transition into like a different person when we're in a relationship, because that is exhausting. That's just exhausting. And I feel like any business that we're building should really come from the true essence of who we are. Like, we shouldn't need to put up a different hat for different situation. So that was really powerful. Wow. Okay. I'm taking good notes.
Okay, I'm so glad. I really enjoy how you listen and receive it all. It's helpful. So yeah. I want to talk about something that's totally related, but gonna feel like a pivot. Okay. And research has been done on very successful people, whether it's in corporate or entrepreneurs. For this, it doesn't matter. Just people who are successful in their careers. And some people who are very successful in their careers, they're the CEO, they're making a lot of money, however you want to define success in a work context, some of those people are happy. And people with exactly the same success, matched for how many years it took to get to the top and all of that, other people are not happy and feel this empty gnawing and frustration with their lives. And so my point is that from the outside, they look the same, but their experience of their lives is very different. And what's been shown through research is that the deciding variable in who feels happy with their success and who doesn't is whether or not they're living according to their values. So when I say values, I mean like honesty, health, happiness, pleasure, contribution, service, impact, legacy. This is not an exhaustive list. So if there's someone who, for example, is very successful, but actually one of his values is contribution, and his company is about the bottom line and commercial success, and there's no nonprofit arm to it or anything like that, he or she is not going to feel happy. But if that person identifies, oh, my value, one of my strong values is contribution, and maybe all that they do is twice a month go volunteer at a soup kitchen, then they will be gratified in living according to that value of contribution. And suddenly all the success, their life becomes better in that it feels better, even if all of the Excel spreadsheets and bank accounts and cars are all the same. So, and maybe volunteering at a soup kitchen isn't enough. Maybe they need to start a nonprofit organization or whatever service they provide, that if it's a surgeon, that he goes and spends a month, a year in an underserved country doing operations without being compensated. I mean, it really depends what your heart needs in terms of contribution. And that's just one example. So in a way, my first tool, the first thing I taught was a way of thinking about things. And I guess you could call it a tool with learning to bring the energy into the relationship. So the second thing I want to teach is how to go about setting yourself up to be living according to your values so that you can be happy with the work that you're doing. So the first step is to identify what your values are. And it should be a minimum of 6 and a maximum of 12. And they're your top values. It doesn't mean you don't value other things, just to be clear, but they're the ones that are most pressing for you. And this is going to be something I'm going to suggest you write it down. I'll give more instruction, but just to be really clear, this is going to be a living document. It's not that it's one and done. In fact, the first time that I did this, health wasn't on it. And I realized actually being healthy, not just because of the pandemic, this was some time ago, but being healthy and fit is a value that I hadn't included, and I added it. And I may have taken some things off that didn't need my attention. So the point is, this is something, if you're somebody who's watching and you do your vision statement and all of that, and you visualize success, by all means, consider adjusting this to make it more real and more authentic at any moment. So anyway, you identify your values, and let's, I'm going to just write down so I remember. Let's say, I'll use some of mine. So personal growth, pleasure, and health. So once you've identified your values, those are 3 that I'm using as examples, you're going to take each one and write a minimum of 5 statements, all in the present tense, and something that can happen every single day. So for example, for me, for personal growth, it goes like, and it goes like this. I experience personal growth. Some of my answers are then every time I observe something new about myself. I experience personal growth every time I do something uncomfortable. I experience personal growth every time I feel I'm moving in the right direction. And then let's say for pleasure, I experience pleasure every time I embrace my husband or think of embracing him, because it has to be something that can happen every day. And I might be traveling, and so I can't embrace him every day, but I can certainly think of embracing him. So anyway, you get the idea that after choosing your values, you write 5 sentences for each value, which begins, I experience whatever the value is, when I, and then you finish that sentence with something that you can do each day. And the point then is to read that every day. And it creates a roadmap So if you're someone who's successful, but you're not happy, and you discover that actually contribution is one of your high values, you can see, I experience contribution when and you take the time to identify what that would be, and that allows you to include it in your life.
So, Alexandra, do you read these statements to yourself at the beginning of every day?
Yes.
Okay. That's good. It's like you're also setting intentions too. Like at the beginning of the day, you intend that you're going to do these things that are in alignment to your values. I love that.
Yes. And for someone, excuse me, who's super motivated, you can read them aloud at the beginning of the day, and then look at them at the end of the day and see which ones need more attention the next day because they didn't happen. Yes. So it's a little bit different than setting goals, because goals are things that are out in the future and you need to do work to get there. This is about how to make your present excellent, how to live in a way that you are living according to your values as you've identified them, and expressing it in the ways that you identify in these sentences.
I love how you mentioned that this is making your present moment excellent instead of like planning for something that's going to happen in the future. Every moment you're just being so conscious and aware that you're living in truth to what you value. That's
exactly.
powerful.
And the reason I'm teaching this tool is because the tension between business and relationships can often cause people to feel unhappy. And one of the simplest ways to get clarity and adjust that is to identify your values and make sure you're living according to them. This has nothing to do with finding a partner or faults of your partner and needing a new one in order to be happy. This has nothing to do with another person. This is for you to identify, is having a relationship a value you have? And if it is, what are the things you want to experience in order to be living according to that? I've made it more broad because this tool applies for all values, but it's really, really relevant if sensual pleasure is a value you have, if emotional intimacy is a value you have, if being in a relationship is a value you have, if success is a value you have, to really take the time to identify exactly what it would look like when you're living according to that value every day. And then you have a chance of creating that.
Yeah, and I can totally see how this is like, think of it as a tool that could guide us back to, like, ground us back to center when something happened in business that throw us off, irritate us, frustrate us. But then if we remind ourselves of what we value, maybe it could be compassion or patience, immediately we can kind of come back to the center and be not so triggered by others.
Yes, exactly. For me, personal growth is the value that provides that, because I know personal growth is going to involve making mistakes, having failures, things that don't feel successful. And what do I want to do with that? Do I want to throw my business away? Do I want to throw that project away? No, I want to learn from it, of course, and create something that really feels good to me.
Yeah. So that pretty much what you just mentioned earlier. This is like the roadmap. Like it really just guides you. So you're always operating based on what you value.
Exactly.
Good.
And there are two very particular benefits to this roadmap. One is it's totally customized, because the fact is there's no general recipe for how to be an entrepreneur and have a fantastic relationship. There are so many different flavors of that. And so this is going to be customized according to your values. And the other thing is that it's really important, if you're starting a new relationship or if you're in one, that you share what your values are and your partner may have the same values, and that's a certain kind of compatibility. They may not have the same values. That does not mean incompatibility. It just means you need to build a relationship with room for both people to live according to their values. And there are all kinds of ways to do that, even when the values are not the same, which is the case in the, well, you know, it's just common that no two people are identical. And that means that there's some differences in how the values get expressed. And I have a third thing that I want to teach.
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay, so values include a lot of intellectual engagement. They're concepts.
Mm-hmm.
It includes our heart and what we want, and it's kind of intuitive. You know, there's no mathematical formula to identify if you value success or you value personal growth or whatever. You know, it's pretty intuitive, but those are concepts, and our mind is going to be very engaged in identifying what our values are.
Mm-hmm.
And so my third tool or guidance, doesn't feel like a tool, it feels more like an invitation, is to connect with your desires. And desires are generally not pursued using our intellectual capacities.
Mm-hmm.
We actually can't ever choose what our desires are. They arise, and then we choose how we respond to them. And for anyone who wants to do well in business and really enjoy the intimacy, passion, and companionship in a relationship, it's essential that you know what you want. And I don't mean now for this in terms of values. That is really important, but I'm talking about in another arena where it's not necessarily so logical, and where maybe sometimes people feel permission to want all kinds of things in a relationship. I want a man who's this tall with dark hair and you know, women often, if they're attracted to men, have permission to like come up with the list. And for someone like that, it may be really hard to desire a lot of money. It may be hard to be like, I want to be really rich. Or some people, it's very easy to say, oh, you know, I want to make a lot of money, but it's so hard for them to feel comfortable having a desire for really high-end shoes. And other people, it's uncomfortable to tell someone exactly how they want their tea, how much milk, how much sugar, or coffee. Like, we all have a kind of internal web which restricts us in our desires. And just to be clear, wanting something is totally different than having it. But the first step is to give ourselves permission to desire it. And so it may seem unrelated in a summit about business, but in fact, what's driving anyone is either some ideas about what they should do. They don't really want to, but they just feel like they should. That's what they've been taught. That's coming from their unconscious rules. Or they're driven by authentic desire. And it matters which it is. In a way, this is very similar to the conversation we just had about values. And so actually the free gift that I want to give everyone is some guidance and instruction and a playful way to connect with your desires, because it's actually very confronting for someone who's super ambitious to honor the whispers of their desire, to Allow yourself to want things even if you think they don't fit with who you are. If that's what you want, part of being uncompromising and bringing all of yourself to a relationship and the appropriate parts of yourself to your business includes welcoming in your desires, knowing what they are, and deciding whether or not you want to pursue them. But suppressing them, pretending they don't exist, making them wrong, feeling shame will always hold you back. And letting them rise to the surface, making friends with them, even if you take no action, or maybe you do create a strategy to make that desire come true. It's all part of evolving and being more present, more clear in your thinking, more in integrity, and ultimately more fulfilled and happy.
Oh, Alexandra, I feel like just by listening to this interview, I feel like I'm becoming a different person by embracing all of this good stuff. And it's just so beautiful. Like I can just picture how beautiful a relationship can evolve if both persons in the connection are doing everything that you just mentioned. Like we get to show up fully as who we are, like you said, without any compromising, and then both business and the relationship can just be growing, and they kind of add fuel to each other. I feel like when we have an amazing relationship, that gives us more inspiration, more creativity, more energy, more juices to add to business. So it just all go hand in hand. And
it really does. And I know we can't talk all day, but there are also people who have great relationships and communicate well with their partner. They make more money. They're more successful in business. Like this is really, it's like an infinity sign where the relationship, a great relationship feeds the business, and a great business feeds the relationship, not just in financial ways, but in ways of being.
Yeah. Oh, this is so good. But like you said, Alexandra, I wish we can talk for the whole day, but obviously we have to respect each other's time. So I just, again, kind reminder for the listeners, like everything that we learned today, this is only the first step. Like this is the awareness of what's next for us, but the real work really happens next. Like what are you going to do? Are we going to go back and listen to this again and really like write down everything that Alexandra just shared, and write down your core values, and do like a mini checkup on like where you're at right now with your business, with your relationship, and you gotta do the work. You just gotta do the work. And there's the free gift that Alexandra just offered, how to stay connected with our desires, right? How to get to know better what we want. And so
it's actually it's called the Your Desires Matter Action Guide.
Your Desires Matter Action Guide. Okay, I love that. So for everyone listening, I will be including the link to Alexandra's free gift. And Alexandra, where can they find you online if they want to continue to learn some more?
Well, I'm easily reached through the contact form at my website, alexandrastockwell.com, and I'm on Facebook and Instagram at The Relationship Catalyst. And if you're listening and there's anything here that's spoken to you, either something that I've talked a lot about or something that I've inferred, I'm always glad to engage. Send me a message. I'll read it, I'll respond, and we'll take the dialogue further.
Awesome. And yeah, everyone, make sure to go connect with Alexandra right now. Same email that this interview went out to has all her contact links. And make sure to send us an email. Let us know what your biggest takeaways are, or even go into our Facebook group that you have access to by participating in this challenge. So go on there, let us know, and connect with your fellow challenge participants. All right. Thank you, Alexandra. Any last words before we finish this off?
You can have it all. That's what I want to say.
Yes.
And along the way, you'll encounter resistance in yourself, and just keep going because you can have it all.
Ah, beautiful. Thank you again. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next time.